Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. I've just watched a great heavyweight fight, signature fight. The kind of fight that, quite frankly, is going to be attached to the winner's resume for a very long time. David Haye showing power, speed, and accuracy just dismantled Dereck Chisora. Now, the fight was actually competitive. Haye was winning the rounds, but Dereck Chisora came to fight. Dereck Chisora is healthy and pushing the issue in that last round. Haye, in my opinion, was being tested. I know it's not going to look like that when they publish the judges' scorecards. I know it might not look like that in tomorrow's paper. But David Haye was getting tested by a guy who was methodically backing him up against the ropes. Now, we all live different lives. Guys with one-punch knockout power must see the world completely in a different fashion, right? David Haye, in my opinion, as many people know here online, is one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in the sport. And it's highly unusual to have a guy be one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in the heavyweight division. And all I can say, and I know I've been having an ongoing dialogue with some longtime subscribers, O.J. Stinson, I'm talking about you, over whether or not David Haye has one-punch knockout power. All I can say, and I know Haye throws combinations, so as the film of this fight goes viral, and as you watch the knockouts, I want you to look at the first knockdown, right? Discount Haye finishing the combination. I'm just here to say that Dereck Chisora is 100% lucid one moment. Then he gets hit with a David Haye left hand. David Haye, who's an orthodox fighter, doesn't even throw it out of an orthodox stance. He throws it out of a southpaw stance, right? He has his right foot out front. David Haye literally uncorks a left hand that effectively ends this fight. You know, Chisora literally is on his way down from that punch. I know Haye follows through with the right. That right that he throws is just perfunctory. Dereck Chisora hits the canvas. He's diminished for the rest of the fight. David Haye then, when Chisora gets back up, and it's clear when he gets back up that Chisora has little chance of winning the fight because he's lost the early rounds already. When Chisora gets back up after being diminished, they continue fighting. David Haye then hits him with a right hand. I know it looks like a combination, but just slow down the film. He hits him with a right hand that ends the fight. Chisora does get up because he is a warrior. Take a look at his feet. Even though the round was over, in my opinion, the referee saved him. Right? It was a beautiful stoppage. Had Dereck Chisora continued, all that would have happened was he would have been dropped further. The fight would have been really one-sided, and Chisora, at that point, could have gotten badly hurt. You know, Haye, when I say top 10 pound for pound, you know, I'm actually doing a disservice to David Haye. I can't come up with 10 better punchers in the sport, pound for pound, than David Haye. The only guy who, in fact, there are two guys who might be in the area code. Lucas Mathis and Saul Alvarez. You know, you're talking about a guy here who literally can put you to sleep on one shot. And I'll say this. Most guys with two-handed power, like David Haye, have holes in their game, right? Because their version of life is to show up, fight with you, hit you upside the head, take you out, right? I don't think they show up and really learn the sport the way someone with inadequacies would, right? And so if you think about the big hitters, Lucas Matthijs, for example, right? He's walking around the ring, he's getting hit, there are holes in his game. Here, David Haye, in my opinion, if you close the gap between yourself and him and you don't give him an opportunity to extend his arms, he's going to have a very hard time. You also need to keep him busy. You have to stick a jab in his face. You have to force him to use his hands for something other than throwing power shots, right? Because if you're just looking at him and not keeping him busy, and he gets a chance to set his feet, whether in an orthodox stance or a southpaw stance, he might just take you out with one punch. Let me also say this too. Haye is more than a puncher, right? Because all I'm saying is, even with the punching power, you really have to appreciate the accuracy. He's not just throwing hard punches. He's landing the hard punches. He's not just a wild swinger. He's a targeted swinger. His punches hit the destination. As you look at the film, just look at how David Haye is able to hit the side of Chisora's head, as well as Chisora's chin, without a lot of wildness. You don't see Haye just completely wild, right? Haye's actually somehow able to duck his head. He gets his entire body behind his shots, but his shots hit the target. He's a very dangerous opponent. And then, of course, into that power and accuracy mix, you have to throw the hand speed advantage. He clearly was much faster than Dereck Chisora. Now, I know I'm making the fight sound one-sided. It wasn't. Dereck Chisora was game. David Haye was breathing heavily. He was breathing out of his mouth. He did look tired in that last round. I believe it ended in like the 5th round or something, right? Haye did look tired. One wonders what would have happened had Dereck Chisora not been knocked down and continued to press the action, right? Keep in mind, back in the day, sluggers like Ernie Shavers, George Foreman, and those really are the kind of names you have to name to kind of visualize David Haye's power in the heavyweight division, right? Vladimir Klitschko hits hard too, but Klitschko has to frame his punches a little bit more than these guys, right? Just like a Foreman or a Shavers could just like touch you and put you to sleep, that's David Haye's level of power, right? And all of these sluggers seem to have stamina problems, right? David Haye seemed to be winded to me in the 5th round. I'm not here to say that he's infallible by any stretch of the imagination. But you're kidding yourself if you don't believe that this guy, with this punch, and I don't care if he weighs 210 or whatever, he has one of the hardest punches in the heavyweight division. Certainly, of all the guys who weigh 210 in the world, I don't know of a guy who hits harder pound for pound than this guy. I mean, as I said, Lucas Matthijs, Saul Alvarez, those are the closest, and Alvarez has to frame it a little bit more than Matthijs and David Haye. Matthijs and David Haye, whether it's right-handed or left-handed, they can just lean into you and take you out, right? Phenomenal puncher. Let me also say one other thing. Haye's going to haunt the heavyweight division. He's reached the point now where he doesn't have to campaign for the big fights. He's like a ghost. He's almost like Sonny Liston in the early 60s, where Floyd Patterson understood that he as champion was going to lose credibility if he didn't fight Sonny Liston. It's obvious that David Haye is one of the most dynamic punchers in boxing, and it's obvious that David Haye is an elite talent in the heavyweight division. And so at this point, the only guy who can dodge David Haye with any credibility is Vladimir Klitschko, because he fought David Haye already, right? Vitaly Klitschko, quite frankly, really has to decide whether he's going to graciously exit stage left, fight Manuel Char in a complete mismatch, and then just get on with his political career, or whether he wants to draw a line in the sand, have one last mega fight. And who else other than Haye could he fight to make it a mega fight? The only other person I can think of would be his brother Vladimir Klitschko, right? So Vitaly Klitschko, whether or not David Haye shows up to the press conference following Vitaly Klitschko's win over Manuel Char, assuming that fight happens, I'm expecting Vitaly to win that fight, whether or not David Haye openly campaigns to fight Vitaly or not, whether or not David Haye tracks Vitaly in shopping malls like he used to track Vladimir Klitschko. The point is, like Sonny Liston, David Haye has cast such a huge shadow over the heavyweight division, much like Floyd Mayweather has at 147 and 154, that if any heavyweight is going to try to make a statement that they are the best in the division, they understand that they're going to have to fight David Haye, right? So, there are some talented heavyweights out there. David Price, Tyson Fury, right? Adlanir Solis. All I can say is, if any of these guys are lucky enough to beat a Klitschko, and if they then wanted to make claim that they are the best heavyweight of, let's say, the last decade, they're going to have to fight David Haye. At a minimum, I believe we understand that if any outsider beats a Klitschko, for them to make the claim that they are this era's best, they would have to fight the other Klitschko. And in addition to fighting the other Klitschko, I believe David Haye has just signed his name so boldly, so emphatically with this win. Yes, it was over Dereck Chisora, but the talent level was obvious. The fight was excellent. The outcome was memorable. He has signed his name in ink so big that if an Adlanir Solis or a David Price were to beat, let's say, a Vitaly Klitschko, if Manuel Char beats Vitaly Klitschko, I believe if Char wants credibility as the best of this era, he would have to then beat Vladimir Klitschko and also beat David Haye. I believe David Haye has emphatically placed himself in the middle of the conversation. Let me hear from you. I understand I'm going to hear from many people. Just read the comments on my pre-fight videos on this. In fact, the first pre-fight video, many people question David Haye's punching power. Ooh, I'll tell you what, that's an increasingly difficult argument to make. This guy hits hard. Don't be fooled by the weight, right? 210, who cares? Understand, Rocky Marciano, another legendary puncher, didn't even weigh 200 pounds, right? The history of the heavyweight division is flooded with these lighter guys with huge punches, right? Joe Frazier's left hook, I understand Joe weighed 205 in some fights. You wouldn't want to get hit with that left hook, right? David Haye is Joe Frazier with a right hand, right? Devastating puncher. Don't sleep on his puncher. Don't sleep on his accuracy. Let me hear from you. Let me also say, too, before the fight, I said that David Haye would have to do something dramatic early in this fight, because if he didn't, he was going to get tested in the later rounds. Let's just say he did something dramatic. Let me hear from you. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Of course, visit us at predictboxing.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching.